Good evening everybody, buonasera a tutti, ai nostri spettatori online. Siamo qui per questo evento speciale dedicato al film Sigaro Miel e vi presento la nostra regista ospite di questa sera, Kamir Ainouz. E insieme a lei conoscete già il console di Francia, che è nostro partner della rassegna, che avrebbe ospitato questo evento nella sua bellissima sala al Palazzo Grenoble di Via Crispi, all'Istituto francese. Io adesso parlerò in inglese e poi le parti in inglese verranno sottotitolate. Intanto vi auguro una buona serata e mi auguro che continuate a vedere la rassegna online nei prossimi giorni. So, I would like to introduce to everybody our director guest. She was part of the program of Venice Days, directed by Gaia Furrer, who will be with us in an event during this week. And we would like to talk to her about her movie, Sigaro Miel, which was presented at Biennale this year. I'm just telling few things as a comment, personal comment, something that led me to choose this movie for our event in Napoli, because I want to congratulate with her for the female touch in this movie, using which she represented the desire and the way a young woman can be, a 17 years old, finding a way of identity, but being very proud of herself at the same time. So, so my first question to her would be, how did you move on this field, and how did you find this wonderful character protagonist of your movie?
You mean to the film of cinema, to this particular subject?
To this film.
This film, yes. I think it came from a feeling of rage, probably, that I had deep inside, from my teenage years. And it went two ways. The first thing is that I felt an emotion that I didn't feel understood, whether it was, within my family or when I was in the outside world. And so this, it created a feeling of, you experience life as an observer rather than being, really into it. So I felt a little bit, I was floating. And at the same time, meaning that I didn't feel rooted. I didn't feel that I belonged, no matter where I went, whether it was with my family in France or with my family in Algeria, or outside of my parents' apartment in France. And because of that, I think a lot of things, and sometimes bad things, can happen to you because you don't know how to react. You don't react the proper way. And so there was this general feeling of there was something around there that, there was a story that I wanted to tell about how do you build your identity and how do you construct yourself when you're so lost between your French and your Algerian cultures. Because that's what it was really about. It's that, if I had grown up as an Italian girl in France, it would have been very different. But because of the story that we have between our two countries, because it is something that is still not, that we still have to look into, it felt like an inner conflict as I was growing up. And then more specifically about this film, I only had this general idea, and then I started to have this image of a girl who was lying on a bed and who was, her body was spread out. And I could tell that she was suffering, but I really couldn't tell why. But I thought, because this picture was coming back into my head again and again and again, like a bad dream, I started looking into it. And then that's exactly what I just said, is that she's torn between her two cultures. And that's why her body is spread out. And because of that, anything can happen to her. She doesn't have any control over it. And that's how I started to build the story of this girl who was a little bit me, but already a completely different character, just somebody that I had to put into situations where she has to choose, how is she going to behave? How is she going to grow? How is she going to become an adult when her own parents are lost because they're in a new country, even though they're familiar with this country? they don't really know how to behave with her in this particular country. And so that's how little by little I started to build this story with specific events in mind, like strong events in her life, in her parents' life, in her mother's life. And it started to build into the story that you saw. I can't hear you.
Laurent?
Yeah. Yes, you're here.
Maybe Laurent wants to ask something or say something.
First of all, I would like to congratulate the director for this film. I watched it with my 20 years old daughter, and she was amazed, and so was I. And I think the one of the strengths of the film is at the same time it really speaks to somebody who is 20s in this moment, and it's also deeply rooted, although in quite a sophisticated way, in its historical background, in the years of the civil war in Algeria, and that's one of the part being my age, I remember quite well, and I felt it was the not used but um, drawn as an historical background in a very subtle way. And really, I thank you, Kamir, and for this film, for the emotion that I had, and watching it, and I'd be glad if when things get better, you can come to introduce it physically, presently, in Naples at the Institut Français. I really hope so.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I would love that. And I was actually just telling Antonella before our call, before this interview, that, you know, to me, it was very special to screen this film the first time in Venice and in Italy, because I think it's more so than it is French and Algerian, it is Mediterranean. And I feel like I'm hoping that it's going to find some resonance, you know, with Italian audiences, and I would love to present it there. Yes.
Yeah, and in the South, I must specify in the South even more because of the culture that belong to this people facing the same Mediterranean Sea, and the way the spirit of that culture has come over to the South, to the islands, and to the south of Italy belongs. It's like even I remember the images of your movie in the countryside in Algeria, which were really belonging to us in a way, and you could feel the air, you can almost smell the way the girl look at that panorama. It's like belonging to a part of the world, and
yes,
it's really strong. It's really strong. One other thing I wanted to ask about your attention to the script writing, as I see from your profile that you've been studying script writing in the United States, and I see in the movie an incredible attention of the possibility that words give us even in the screen. It's not always it's not always that you find that kind of attention to the words, to the words they say. They are put together, and not in terms of only narration of the story, but the attention of the real words being from a family in a certain times, in a certain kind of age, very specific, very clear, very just. That's what I felt. Is it something you have worked on a lot?
Yes, it was my intention, both in the dialogue and in the situations themselves, because, you know, when I first started studying screenwriting, it was at UCLA in Los Angeles, and we had to start, you know, just writing scripts, whatever comes to your mind, which is a great way to start, you know, writing, to not overthink it and to just go. And the first ideas that, you know, sprang to mind were ideas about my family and my culture and my double culture, really, because it is French and Algerian, and with scenes that were set in Algeria. And I remember reading my pages to the class, and having people go like, "What, Albania, Nigeria? Where is it?" And so I figured, you know what? I have to find a way to make my stories universal, because they're not gonna care at all if it doesn't ring true to everyone, and not to everyone, but to as many people as you can. And so it is a craft, and it is it takes time to find the exact situations and the right line of dialogue that is going to be subtle enough to convey what the characters are feeling, but no one ever says exactly how they feel in life. So even less so in films. And so yes, it was a very clear intention to appeal and to make it feel natural and real. And in that, I was also served by amazing, very, I would say, intelligent, but also instinctive actors who were able to convey those lines.
The relationship with the relationship with between her and the guy. It's so close to us, to our life, to our memories, to our daily life. It's very natural. That's the most precise word to say how much. And how did you cast the actors? Was it
it was well for Zoe Adjani, who plays Selma. I had seen her in a previous film that she'd made a few years ago, and she struck me as a natural, as somebody who has and I just loved what was her inner life, what you could see in her eyes, and I felt that it was a match with the character. And so she read the script and she felt the exact same way. I mean, it was like it's like it's a real meeting, it's an encounter, and she brought to it things that I didn't sometimes even think about, because it was her own experience and her own nowadays, and it resonated with her. Even though it was, we're in 2020, it resonated with her, even though it was 25 years ago, because unfortunately, fortunately for the film, but unfortunately for us, it's still a fight. And she has this fighting attitude towards life, and non-judgmental either. And I really liked that. And so it was a great, she was the perfect person to play and to work this character together. And then for the parents, Amira Kazar was an obvious choice, because she's sophisticated, she's intelligent, she has fire, boiling inside, and at the same time, she's not going to show it too much. And she had this class, and she was able to build a relationship with the daughter, which was crucial for me for this film, because you can talk as much as you want about systems that are oppressing. You can talk about racism and sexism, but I think it's very much in our own hands to debunk and to deconstruct these systems. And I think that patriarchy is a system that is very much not only, but very much transmitted from women to daughters, from mothers to daughters. Yes. And so I wanted to examine this particular relationship. And Amira was perfect for that, because she has the subtleness, to convey both authority and love at the same time, and to be able to question herself and her own choices towards her daughter.
Yeah, there were some little limit line where they would meet, and you could recognize them in those moments. And I think it's the intergenerational intergenerational point where all of us have to go through, and the most you enlarge that limit, the most there is a change in our world.
Yes, so because even with the father, it's about how do you become yourself, and it's always at that age, it's always a confrontation with your parents. Sure. And so they needed to be strong actors and strong characters that she goes head on to and try to find herself in the process. But it's a loving experience as well, because they're not dismissive. I mean, they really love their daughter and they want what's best for her. They just sometimes don't know what is best for her, and she has to figure it out by herself. But they needed to be both strong and loving characters.
Laurent, you want to say something more?
Or maybe just a thought that came to me when I was watching your film. In the 90s, there was commissioned by Arte a series of films by young directors, French directors at the time, like the senior one was Stéchiné, but there was Olivier Assayas and Noémie Lovski and so many others, which is called Tous les garçons et les filles de mon âge. And the basic idea of the movie was to make coming of age films. And it was shot in the 90s, and as your film is context is, and I really felt that it would have been part of this very famous historical series of film, and you really belong to them in a way. It's a great coming of age movie. My understanding.
It's an honor. Thank you. Yeah, I think because I like to examine this point of, you know, when you go from one state to another and going from teenage years to adulthood is, you know, it's an interesting bascule, like they say in French. And so it's where, you know, so much happens that is going to ground you for the rest of your life and define you for the rest of your life.
Yes, yes. Okay, I think one more question, last question about the future of this movie, since we are in this very terrible moment for all of us, but are you going to festival? Of course, online festival around, and what's the purpose? What's your aim about distribution in France? If you can tell us something more about this.
So we've been selected at several festivals, you know, during the fall. But like you said, it's you know, most of them have been turning into Zoom experiences, one after the other. Obviously, it's just the way that it is. I'm pretty confident that, you know, any film, any work of art is going to find its place in the world ultimately. And for France, we were planning on a release in January. Obviously that's changed now, so we're more looking towards something in the spring, maybe March, maybe, you know, so that has to be set still, but yeah, that's the idea, that we're going to release it in a, you know, in a good way and take the time to put it out there in the world, because, you know, it took me 9 to 10 years to actually to develop the script and to make this film. And so you want the best conditions possible, so it's just giving us a little more time to prepare.
I know what you mean.
We'll be ready.
So we wish you the best and good luck. You want to send a message to our Napoli community, even if we are online, and we'll be waiting for you coming back to the screen theater at Grenoble. We'll really wait you back.
Yes, thank you for everyone, you know, to everyone for still watching cinema and being here for us, because it's a very tough time, and to feel and to understand that there is an audience still out there, even though we don't see it, which is very frustrating, but to keep on having those talks and sharing, you know, it's all about the experience. So just thank you for watching films.
Okay. Thank you to Kamir. Thank you very much. Bye, Laurent. We'll see you next week, and we'll be in touch, Kamir.
Yes, we keep in touch. Absolutely.
Looking forward to seeing you here.
I'll be there.
Bye. Bye-bye.